Hey, good morning, everybody. This is day two of the Memorial Day weekend. I guess if for those that had yesterday off as well, it is damp and icky here. It's like drizzly on and off. So I hope that wherever you are, you're going to have a wonderful day, whether or not it may be indoors because of rain, or maybe you can go to the beach, you can have a barbecue. But we have to keep in mind what Memorial Day is all about, and it's in honor of the soldiers that have served in our military who have died. Um, and so we remember them, we honor their memory, and this is the purpose, or this is the reason why we have Memorial Day off. So I just wanted to say that and get that out of the way, because it's not all about going to the beach and having fun. Um, Ted sent me a really interesting link uh, to something called the psychology of Generation Jones. Now, he started to explain it to me about how this applies to people born between 1954 and 1964-65. And I was like, Generation Jones? I didn't like that because I have always, been a proud baby boomer. But Ted explained how we have two separate cultural experiences. And if you're familiar with it, the generations are usually broken down into decades. Like Gen, you've got Gen X, and then you have the millennials, and then you have Gen Z, and now you've got Gen Alpha, and now there's even Gen Beta coming up, and they're all about 10. There goes my coffee. They're all about 10 years apart in terms of what they're called and what they experience throughout their lives. So I thought, all right, well, I'm going to watch this and see, give it a fair chance. And boy, it's 37 minutes long. I'm putting a link here for anyone who's interested. And I think there has been research into other generations of boomers and Gen X and Gen Z. But anyway, this was specifically for people born between 1954 and 1964, 65. So Ted and I both were born in 1954. And the boomer generation extends from 1946 all the way up to 64, 65. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like an 18, 19-year spread. And what was happening during the 60s that has been most familiar to viewers are things like the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War protests, uh, the assassinations of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King. All of the boomers that were born, say 1946 to about 1950 or so, they were older teens, young adults, when some of these things were occurring. And so they were coming off of having parents who uh, were doing pretty well after World War II. And so they may not have grown up rich. I don't mean to say that. But what I mean to say is that their parents' opportunities and abilities to provide helped the kids born in those years to be able to go to college, um, and to become involved in things like Woodstock and the Vietnam War protests, I think of Kent State. All right. But anyhow, during those years, Ted and I were young. During most of the civil rights movement, I can tell you that I was pretty unaware of what was going on. I was, uh, just a couple of years old, up to about 10 years old, when the heart of the civil rights movement was going on. And so I don't remember feeling the outrage that my older brothers and sisters in the boomer generation would have felt at what was happening in our country in terms of Vietnam and civil rights and discrimination and all of that. Um, so I remember Woodstock very clearly, but I also remember that in that year I was like 13 years old. Um, there was no way I could go, but I wanted to. And in the video, they even said, and I got this feeling of watching some of these things occurring as I was a child, and watch especially the protests and Woodstock, watching these events go on. And it was like watching older brothers and sisters doing these things that I wished I could do, but was too young. And so the people that make this video made um, or they're making the argument that we are the Jones generation, and the reason why it's called the Jones generation is because it's related to us jonesing something and always being just a little bit too late in getting there. So, by the time I was old enough to even think about, something like Woodstock or, going to a protest, all of that stuff was over. You know, I graduated, it was 1973. So, my most familiar memories of what was happening and the music that I love to listen to has to do with the 70s, maybe late 60s too, because I was reflecting on the song by The Who, talking about my generation. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you know what? They weren't talking about all of our generational experiences. Because, like I said, I was like maybe 10 when that song was released. But under the circumstances, and this is another story for another time, I was relating to pop music, and the song that I used as my own personal song is kind of a sad one, but like I said, it's a long story. I Am a Rock by Simon and Garfunkel. So my experience, my experiences at that time were completely different than my older brothers and sisters who would have been 18, 19, and so on. You know, I remembered Watergate, and there's characteristics of Generation Jones that is broken down in this really interesting video. I did not agree with everything, uh, all of the kind of behaviors that we developed. I didn't really agree with them all, and a reason for that is because 1954 is the first year that they're talking about. So I feel like maybe a couple of years in there, say 54, 55, maybe 56, maybe, um, we're still very much picking up the cultural pieces from the baby boomer generation. Okay, so for example, one of the things that the video mentioned was that our Jen Jones our Jens Jones generation had lost faith in government. And at least for me, that is not true because and as I got into my adult years, yes, there was Watergate, but there were also positive movements, particularly because I was so involved with the deaf community. I was seeing the Vocational Rehabilitation Act of 1973 passed, and then the Americans with Disabilities Act, and then IDEA, and all of the more legal recognition of civil rights for disabled people. So I was always very involved in that. And I actually did not start losing faith in government until the Republicans took hold. I was not particularly pleased with the Reagan administration, especially now that I've learned about that dirty trick that he played on Jimmy Carter to cause him to lose the election. That pisses me off to this day. But then, we had the Bushes, and then we've had this convicted felon. And this is particularly where I have lost faith in government, in the mass media, um, with a lot of things because of what the convicted felon has been doing. And speaking of that, very briefly, um, I I do what I can do to make a statement that I oppose the convicted felon. I oppose his administration and all of his little lackeys under him. And I blame the cowardly Congress, especially those MAGA and other Republicans there, who refuse to openly admit that the convicted felon is losing his marbles, his brain is Swiss cheese, and needs desperate he needs desperate help desperately, but they're not doing it. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about all that today. And the more things he does, the more I'm like, yeah, okay. Not that I'm indifferent. I still do what I can do to oppose all of this. But at any rate, it's the the video is very interesting, and it explains a lot of things to me. Especially, there's a part in there about helicoptering parents, and that kind of hit home with me. Um, for various reasons. But anyway, give it a try, see what you think. And at the very end of that video, there's like a big long list of the different generations. And I believe if you click on that, you may be able to get to your generation. Um, anyway, we are continuing to hang in there. We are planning to have a nice, quiet Memorial Day weekend. The weather isn't supposed to be much good for us. So we'll maybe just stay indoors and visit and watch movies and just relax. And I have included pictures of some is our four boys, and many are my grandkitties and great grandkitties. So hopefully you all enjoy, and peace out. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. And this is going to be kind of crooked. Love you.